Hello, my name is David Okerlund. In the last 35 years of speaking, one of the greatest compliments I've ever been given was presented to me by the Toastmasters organization when they named me one of the most passionate speakers in America. And that meant a lot to me. I remember when being a hospital administrator in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was charged with setting up a wellness program for the entire community of Lincoln. I knew how much passion I had to have in here. And I knew how much passion I had to get from those volunteers that would make it successful. And my most popular keynote address is called The Joys of Stress, Making the Most Out of the Challenges in Ag. And I mention that because I believe that a daily nurtured sense of passion and personal development skills, the willingness to become 1% better tomorrow than what you are today, is one of the most powerful enrichment skills we can employ in an ongoing negative world of change. And this is particularly true in the field of agriculture. I remember last year being in southeast Nebraska, watching the floodwaters come down from the Missouri River, decimating farms and homes and communities in Nebraska and Iowa and Kansas and Missouri. I have seen fields of standing corn in the middle of winter in snowdrifts in North Dakota. I've seen the pain caused by low commodity prices, the uncertainty of the trade wars. I've even listened to the Secretary of Ag tell Wisconsin dairymen to either get big or get out. The financial stress at every level of farming today is alarming. And now we wake up in the morning and what do we find? The great pandemic. And that begs the question, are there things that we can do on a daily basis to fertilize and nurture our sense of passion and our personal development skills so that we can become lighthouses for other people? Well, the answer is yes. And that's what this video seminar is all about. Let me give you an example of one of 5 key points that I make during this program. I call it the grace of receptivity. The final empowerment tool I want to talk to you about is what I call the grace of receptivity. And it is one of the most magical things that can happen to bring us into focus again and to get us at a level where we're comfortable with going from what was to what is to be, okay? Probably the best way to say it's a time to renew, restore, and replenish. You know, a long time ago, we had a day set aside just for that. It was called the Holy Sabbath. And then the Holy Sabbath became the Sabbath. And then the Sabbath became Sunday. And today we call it the weekend. I believe we, over a period of time, way back then they had things called the blue laws, and many younger people won't understand what that was. But back then when I was a kid, you couldn't buy anything on Sunday. Nothing. Car dealerships, all that stuff was closed because it was time set aside for families to step back, to relax, to enjoy each other. But as a turnpike of success was built and we started going faster and faster to get ahead of everybody and ahead of everything, and we didn't put many rest stops along the way, we've lost a great power, that power of receptivity. I'll put it this way. I learned about it a long, long time ago. And I learned it on my grandpa's farm in southern Minnesota, near Frost, Minnesota, to be exact. Every summer when we were kids, we were allowed to go up and spend a week or two with Grandma and Grandpa. And it was fun being on the farm, being chased by the geese and watching them behead chickens and guess how long they were going to run around without their heads on them and things like that. And they had an apple orchard and a silo and a barn and pigeons and all those things. But one thing I did notice was when Grandpa got done working in the field or whatever he was doing, milking cows, when he would come into the house, he would go out to the porch and sit down and did something kind of I thought was strange at the particular time. But it was a time when Grandma said, nobody bothers Grandpa. You let him sit there. And that's what he did. I called it was a ritual. Every day he did that. And one day I said, Grandpa, I said, why do you do this? Why do you sit on that rocking chair for a half an hour every day? And he said, it's a ritual of mine. It gives me time to thank the good Lord for giving me another day and having a great day with my grandkids when they visit me. It's a time when I let go of the tension, because I get a lot of tension out there. Sometimes those cows are hard to deal with, and sometimes the equipment breaks down, and I come in and I got a lot of tension. I can sit down in that chair and just rock back and forth and so slowly let that tension go. He said, then also it's a time for my imagination. It's a time when I can think of possibilities that might be ahead of me, things I might do, things that I might plan that will enrich my life and the life of my family. And I said, well, how does that work? And he said, well, when I get to that point, I ask the big question, I wonder if. And that's the door that opens up my imagination to possibilities. I said, Grandpa, I don't understand that. He said, well, let me tell you a story that might put it all into perspective. And I said, I love stories, Grandpa. Tell me a story. And he said, well, it was about a man by the name of Sir Samuel Brown, early in the 1800s. He lived on the Tweed River in England, and he was a lover of gardens. He had rose gardens all over the place, and he took care of his roses like they were his children. And he had a problem, though. He lived on one side of the river, but on the other side, he had more gardens over there. But to get over there to take care of those children, he had to go up 3 miles up the river to cross the only bridge and then come back down. And at the age of 60-something, he got arthritis. And it became very painful for him to go up there. And it made him sad because he wasn't able to give the same kind of care to the roses on the other side of the river. And then it happened because he had a ritual. His ritual every morning when he'd get up, he'd have his wife make him a cup of tea, and he'd go out in his garden, and he'd sit down on a bench, and he'd look at his children, his roses, and he would just sort of relax and get comfortable. And his mind would start to drift into the I wonder if. And one day he saw it. He was looking down the path of the rose garden, and he saw something I know everybody's seen at one time or another, a spider's web. It was woven from one side of the rose bushes across the path to the other side, caught in the early morning dew, like a million diamond droplets hanging on the web. You've seen it on the side of a barn in the early morning. It's a beautiful, beautiful sight. And he looked at it and marveled at it. And then something happened. He looked at one side and looked at the other. And he got up off his bench and got over and got down on his knees and looked again at the spider's web. And then he looked toward the Tweed River and then back to the spider's web and said to himself, I wonder if I could take some ropes and some cables and I could make my own spider's web right here across the river. So I wouldn't have to travel upstream 2 miles on a buggy and come back down. I could grab a few tools and cross my little bridge, my little rope bridge, right here. Wouldn't that be great? And that's when a 60-some-year-old man, a gardener in England, he said, who sat on a bench and got into the I wonder if, and created what we know today as the suspension bridge. One man through the grace of receptivity, restored and renewed himself and his faith, and then drifted into the wonder of the imagination and created something as magnificent as that. The art of receptivity is something we all need to employ in our life. We all need to set aside some time every day, maybe a half an hour or whatever, where we can restore, we can renew, and we can replenish. That gives us a bridge from what was to what is to be. That gets us through the troubled times. That gets us through the pandemic. That gets us through the foul weather or whatever might descend upon us. If we can keep what's in here and what's in here healthy. So ask yourself, do you set aside time for yourself? Do you let your mind wander, be renewed, and restore your faith? Well, if you don't, you're passing up one of the most powerful tools that you can have to survive the troubled times and the chaos we face today.